Hey guys, welcome to a very special video I have for you here. Let's get into the gist of it then. Basically, 5 years ago on this day, I uploaded my first Football Manager video to YouTube. It was a complete shot in the dark at the time. There were hardly any Football Manager videos on YouTube at all, but nearly 900 videos and 1.8 million views later, here we are. I thought I'd celebrate this milestone with a look back at some of the best regens we've ever had on the channel. And yes, it is indeed inspired by Work the Space video, which he uploaded just a few days ago, but I wanted to do the same to celebrate. So, without further ado, let's take a look back at the top 10 best regens. Coming in at number 10 is Chiels Spielmakers from my FM12 Liverpool save. He's easily the best goalkeeper I think I've ever had on any FM, and even though I had to pay West Ham an eye-watering £29 million for him in 2029, I think he was worth every penny. He had it all. He had shot stopping, reflexes, handling, communication, bravery, all the great attributes needed to make a great goalkeeper. The only reason he's at number 10 is because I spent so little time with him. He stayed at Liverpool till the very end of his career, and after I had moved on to the likes of Arsenal and Dortmund, he even thwarted me on numerous occasions after I left. And so I think when you put it all together, I think it's fair to say he deserves a place on the list. At number 9 is Kartson Makowski from the short-lived but very highly successful Tottenham save on FM13. And we were well into the future at this point, and he might not ring a bell for too many of you, but Makowski will always hold a special place in my heart. He's an honest-to-God Austrian footballer who excelled himself in the Champions League, putting in one of the best individual performances I've ever seen from a single player in the semi-final second leg versus Real Madrid, as he scored a hat-trick from midfield to win us the game 8-7 on aggregate. Not only that, but he also put in a man-of-the-match performance versus Inter in the final itself. Number 8 goes to Rocco Gallio in the FM15 Derby County save. Now this guy was a walking, talking goal machine, and he spearheaded my Derby team to Premier League and Champions League glory. I took over the team when they were sort of languishing near the bottom of the Premier League, and after a decent but trophyless spell at Newcastle and Aston Villa, I needed a bit of a change. And Rocco Gallio, who up to that point had been an average goal scorer, hit his peak and just simply put turned into an absolute monster. Also, if not acknowledged by the game, Gallio scored an incredible 339 goals. Now that broke the record for Derby's all-time goal scorer, which had been held for over a century by Steve Bloomer. And for that alone, I think he deserves to be on this list. The number 7 spot belongs to Horst Krumpen from my Dortmund save on FM13. Now when I joined the club, he was already a legend and was by far and away the standout player in the team, and at times he would single-handedly win us games on his own. His ever-underlying loyalty to Dortmund was an added bonus, as he became one of Europe's most feared strikers at the end of the 2030s. And the amount of times I've just thought about getting a Dortmund shirt with Krumpen 9 on the back really does not bear thinking about. At number 6, it's Brighton's Ronald Custers on FM13. Now this guy was the first regen I remember finding on the game that I thought maybe I could turn into a world-class player. And I guess my hunch was proven right, as he went on to captain the club and turn in wonderfully consistent performances every season. He was the beating heart of a Brighton team that climbed up the table and turned from being a sort of stagnating mid-table Premier League team to eventually winning the league itself, and indeed even the Champions League in the mid-20s. It was just a shame that Pep Guardiola was the man to do it and not me. At number 5, it's Dan Broom from my second spell with Brighton on FM13 in the 2060s. Now despite starting out at Liverpool, he was signed for my newly reformed Brighton team, and after deciding on a second spell there, he became the ultimate spearhead of that team. And in the 2058-59 season, he scored an absolutely incredible 70 goals in one season in all competitions, 48 of which came in the Premier League. Now similarly to Rocco Gallio, he started out as a sort of fairly modest average striker, but as he matured and climbed towards his peak, he became one of the best strikers I've ever seen on the game, and frankly his record speaks for itself. At number 4 on our list, it is Noah Goetz, the French striker from my all-regen Liverpool save on FM12. Simply put, a phenomenal striker. He formed a partnership with another player who will also appear on the list, which is still to this day the best centre-forward partnership I've ever had on any FM. He stayed at Liverpool for 12 years, finishing off his career back home in France, and although he did sour things slightly by going to Chelsea as a coach, it's just not enough for me to not include him on the list. His first few seasons with Liverpool were simply staggering and made such an impression on me that I just had to have him here, just missing out of the top 3. Number 3 is given to Noah Goetz's partner, the quite simply legendary Fredinho. Now, not only would this guy score goals for fun, but he became a bit of a cult hero on my FM12 Liverpool save simply because of his name. We paid £30 million for him to come to England, and he did not disappoint. Even when he was in the twilight of his career, he was still an important part of the team, becoming captain for a short period as well. He scored a quite astonishing 354 goals in 499 appearances, and that is a simply breathtaking number. And that is why he gets the bronze medal. Number 2 is the enigmatic Trevor Sadler on my FM12 Liverpool save. A product of the famous Southampton Academy, this half St. Lucian left winger was the first regen that I properly fell in love with on YouTube. He spent an unbelievable 22 years with the club, joining in 2016, ironically enough, for a measly £1.5 million. He eventually retired in 2038 and became a youth coach back at his boyhood club, Southampton. He played 627 times for Liverpool, scoring 186 goals and becoming a captain and club legend very early on. He is, simply put, the best midfield regen I've ever had on Football Manager. Before we get to number 1, I do just want to give some honourable mentions. Now, these are players who perhaps aren't good enough to make the top 10, however deserve a shout out for their own sakes. Firstly, we have Dominic Kemp, another one from my FM13 Liverpool save. And now, whilst he wasn't the most gifted, talented, or even versatile of footballers, Kemp made up for it in the sheer number of great performances he put in, including scoring one of the luckiest and most dramatic goals I've ever scored or even seen on Football Manager. It was in the Champions League semi-final in 2033. It was against Manchester City. In the last minute, he pounced on the captain and club legend Daniel Kraft's mistake to put us through to the final. Honestly, it was like something out of a film script, and for that, I've got to give him a shout out. I just don't believe this. I mean, at this point, I was going crazy because we just equalised. But oh, Kraft, what are you doing, son? He's just given it to Dominic Kemp and he's put us through to the Champions League final. The other and final honourable mention goes to Vitomir Zovko, a Dortmund hero on FM13 that gen through their academy and spent his entire career there. He didn't even go out on loan. He came through during my time there and was able to establish him as a pretty solid centre-back. I then left for other ventures, but he went from strength to strength at Dortmund, becoming a legend of the highest order. He began his career in 2037 and ended it in 2058, making over 185 appearances for Germany in the process, and I think had I stuck with Dortmund for longer, he would likely have been on this list. But despite this, I've still got to give him a mention, as there really aren't too many like him. And finally, at number 1 on our top 10 regens countdown is, of course, the one, the only, the master himself, Barry Wallace, a Scottish regen out of Dundee. Now, this guy was already at Liverpool before I joined then in 2026, and he had been terrifying me for years when I was at Brighton. However, finally, when I took over as Liverpool manager, I was in control of him, and he is, simply put, the best regen I've ever had. He swung so many games in our favour. I honestly don't know where the FM13 Liverpool team would be without him. He was signed from Dundee United in 2020 and continued to score goals right the way to the end. He stayed at Liverpool for a fantastic 15 years before eventually retiring in 2035 and also made 109 appearances for Scotland, scoring 79 goals in the process. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this countdown. If you've been here since the beginning, if you're one of the few that have stuck around for 5 years, please take this as a sincere and heartfelt thanks from me. You guys have been amazing since day one, and although a lot has changed, I do feel as if there is plenty more to come in the future from everyone involved, not just myself, not just the bigger names, but everyone who wants to make a Football Manager video on YouTube. I say go for it, give it a go, what's the worst that can happen? Here's to 5 more years on YouTube. Thanks for watching once more. Please do look out for the AC Milan save. That is going to be continuing tomorrow, so do look out for that. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Goodbye.